Michael, and he's the deacon, and this is the show that's going to challenge the thoughts of modern man, and we're going to discuss some recent events of the week and the recent history, and we're going to look at it from a Catholic perspective. We're going to look at unfortunately, some of the bad news that's going on, some of the shootings that have gone on. We're going to talk a little bit about that and see what are your thoughts and what are some of the thoughts about that. We're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about the royal wedding. Let's put it that way. We've talked enough about that, so we're going to stay away from the royal wedding. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about playoffs that are going on. Some sports playoffs. We got the NBA playoffs going on. We got the NHL playoffs going on. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about in terms of sports. We're going to go talk about gambling. Gambling has now been deemed a state issue. And it's going to be up to the states to decide what they want to do. So the Supreme Court of the United States said it's unconstitutional for the federal government to monitor that and have
in our form of government, all the powers reside in the states except those which specifically are given to the federal government.
Yep, and we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about some other crazy things like what I call the diaper lady. Talk about that too. And then maybe you can wrap it up and tell us a little bit about today's readings from church and reflect on the gospel a little bit. And we could talk a little bit about that too. But it's good to see you again. I know it's been a while, and
it has been. We got to get the host to fill these cups up. And it's pretty bad.
It looks like we've been elevated from a editing show to a live show.
Live. Is the world ready for us live?
I don't know. The question is Laudare Outreach ready for our live show? I'm not sure. Just bear with us. I mean, there might be some technical issues. We got a crew working hard, trying to get this going. We're watching all the.
I'm looking at two technical issues right in front of me.
Well, look, we got a good crew, and they're working really hard to make this thing happen.
Yeah,
it'll happen.
They are.
But you know what?
They have good hearts, not good hands, but good hearts.
Good hearts, but that's the basis of a lot of things. Having a good heart. I see a couple. If we had the technology, we'd pan the camera around so we could show the busy beavers working so hard. All these hand gestures that are going on here, jumping around. I see people climbing on the walls.
I haven't seen.
Look, he doesn't know what's going on.
I haven't seen so many hand gestures since I dropped a hot cup of coffee in my friend's lap.
I'm telling you what, some of the things I'm seeing right now, folks.
It's a sight for sore eyes, or it's a sight.
Tell me we're not a talkie right now.
The audio on YouTube doesn't seem to be working, but the Facebook feed is perfectly
fine.
Okay,
so good. On YouTube, we're Charlie Chaplin, and on Facebook, it's a talkie.
Yes.
Great. So
why do we always have
modern technology.
Audio problems?
Maybe I should get a cane and start waddling around like Charlie Chaplin on
there's
YouTube.
No mics on Facebook, so talk loud.
So we got to talk loud if we're going on Facebook.
We can't jack
I need some more water. We haven't even gotten to our first topic, and I need water.
I need something stronger than water. Wait a minute.
Get the intern. Intern, he needs something stronger than water.
He's not old enough to give me what I need. He's against the law.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about that. We're here in the Mid-South, and the Supreme Court of the United States just said that the states can decide whether or not they want to carry sports betting, sports gambling. It's no longer a federal issue. So we're here in Tennessee, Mid-South, and it's going to come this way at some point. You've been in the area for years. What do you think Tennessee is going to do with this?
You know, I have nothing against gambling as such. But I do have problems with what it does in individuals' lives. So the gambling aspect of things could really benefit the state. Yeah, it needs to be regulated, but just like we regulate alcohol sales, somehow there's got to be a way to regulate gambling, because the people that are heavily addicted to gambling wind up in some deep problems. So this could be something that has to be, we'll have to have some mandates, we'll have to have some oversight, and then there's going to be a moral issue that comes along with it. And it's probably going to all be done on the internet. Most of the gambling.
A lot of the gambling is going to be done on the internet. With today's day and age, we have a lot of stuff that goes on.
And you cannot. It's very hard to look at individuals on the internet. Identification is very hard and costly.
Oh yeah.
I think basically I'm looking at how is this going to have effects on collegiate sports.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about, is it going to be more pressure on collegiate sports to maybe have outsiders, have college sports doing the wrong things, like having athletes involved and kind of
even more
fixing things.
So it's not like it doesn't already exist.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be a lot of more economic incentive.
And a lot of this, from what I understand and from what I've read and what I've researched, is a lot of this is economically driven. There's going to be a lot of money. You and I were talking before about the lottery and how that's impacted our area in a positive way. I know a lot of the monies go to educations, a lot of monies go to scholarships, and so what do you think? Do you think that revenue stream that could be coming from sports betting, could that benefit the state? What do you think?
You know, the lottery and sports betting share these two characteristics. Their effect is a regressive taxation. Whereas those people that least can afford it wind up in the hole for both gambling and the lottery. You don't find really wealthy people going out and buying tons of lottery tickets.
Yeah, it's kind of a hope and a dream. That's what they used to call it a long time ago.
It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy.
It is, and the biggest push, I mean, and here in Tennessee, I think it could, if handled correctly and monies are funneled into the right areas, it could definitely have a positive impact in our area with school systems or infrastructure or anything that benefits. It does carry a price tag. I mean, it will.
It does, and I think that, you know, the pretense that we have in collegiate sports that these are not professional athletes, it's just a farce, and this is going to knock even more of that pretense down. There's always, sports and gambling have been linked together for a long time. I just got done looking at The Natural, the movie.
One of my favorites, Robert Redford.
Robert Redford, and
I knew a movie title.
There was gambling to throw the playoffs.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have the Black Sox scandal from the early 1900s, and then you have Pete Rose, who's dealt with the ramifications of sports gambling, and
so what happens when you have people that have the sports they're playing, they have maybe a 10, 15 year window, and even less probably for something like football. You can play baseball a little older, but you have this very narrow window to get as much money as you can in that short a time. So even though sports salaries were nothing.
Oh, they were minuscule compared to what they are now.
Back when the era that the Natural talks about.
So bottom line, good thing or bad thing for the state? What do you think? If they decide,
people are going to gamble one way or the other.
May as well have some benefits.
And some kind of regulation, some kind of handle on it.
I think in general, I think it would be a good thing for Tennessee. I think it would be good for us. Oh, man down. It would be good for us. So in all, I think it would be a good thing. Staying on the same topic of sports. Sorry, microphone here. We're getting it fixed up. There we go. Oh, man down. Speaking of sports.
Brad, get the staple gun, staple it to his chest, please.
Oh, man, I need to staple my forehead. Can I put on my hat? You watch any NBA or NHL playoffs? Let's start with the NBA. Do you watch any NBA? You get your LeBron or what?
I would be totally dishonest if I told you I had any real interest in any sport other than baseball.
All right. Since baseball just started, let me give you the real quick version of what's going on in the playoffs.
There you go.
All right, so we got 4 teams left in the NBA.
Yeah.
All right, we got LeBron James and the Cavaliers against Brad Stevens' Boston Celtics. And on the West, we have Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, and we have James Harden and the Houston Rockets. 2 of the best teams in the West against 2 of the best teams in the East. Right now, LeBron's looking to go to the playoffs for the 4th or 5th year in a row to go into the finals. Could be as last year with Cleveland. Right now they are down in the series 3-2, I believe. 2-1. 2-1. And so they're going on right now. So we got 4 of the best teams in the NBA playing right now, and one of them being LeBron James. And I know you
I know the name. That's about it.
You've known the name. You remember Michael Jordan, right?
No, I remember the real biggies. I remember.
They have a lot of people nowadays are comparing LeBron James to Michael Jordan. So he's going to the playoffs right now. But right now, I think the best team, Golden State Warriors. I think if all goes and nobody gets hurt, I think the Golden State Warriors will win the NBA title. And it's going to be something where they're kind of creating a little bit of a dynasty. I mean, way back when you were watching some of them, who were some of the dynasties in the NBA? You had the Boston Celtics. Let's see, who else was? Well, I don't know. That may have been too long ago. Let's see, who else was back there? Oh, when I was younger, they had Chicago Bulls.
My favorite team was the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh, that was a long time.
I thought they were the most serious team in basketball.
Well, I mean, if they were put in the NBA right now, they'd probably win a whole lot of games, but they would probably foul out a lot too. But the Harlem Globetrotters used to be a real team.
I know.
Before they turned. So that was a long time ago.
But they were damn good.
They were.
Ball players, they really were.
They were good ball players.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a little check mark here. That's 1. All right.
We keep it. That was no profanity.
No, we'll just get a jar for quarters and then we'll go have a party at the end there.
Oh.
But no, and so in the NBA, I'm not a huge NBA fan, but I do like a good sports game, and I do think that there's really good matchups right now. Really entertaining, really good to watch. But I'm more into these NHL playoffs. And the NHL playoffs have been awesome. I mean, we got 4 teams left. Unfortunately, none of them are the Nashville Predators. They did lose in the second round.
I came close to getting my interest.
They were close, sorry. But we do have breaking news that just came across the wire since we're live, we may as well start using breaking news. But the Las Vegas Golden Knights have just made it to the NHL Finals. And the reason why that's breaking news is because this is the first year that the Golden Knights have been in the NHL. They are an expansion team. This is the first year, and this will be a huge story if somehow the Vegas Golden Knights could win the Stanley Cup. There are teams that have been waiting decades to win a Stanley Cup. Decades. Their fans have been through gut-wrenching seasons and heartache and waiting, and this team may win the Stanley Cup in their first year.
To home, yes. I like Nashville. Yeah.
Nashville. There's going to be a lot of Nashvillians that are not going to be happy, I think, if the Vegas Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup. But they've done a really good job, and it's weird to think about because we all think about hockey as a winter sport and it's played in winter area. Canada is very popular. Las Vegas is in the middle of the desert, and the other great teams in the league. The other team on the Eastern Conference, Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida, and they're
refrigeration.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's 2 of the hottest spots in the U.S. and they have the best hockey team.
Also, what's really strikes me is that these were essentially cold weather winter sports.
Oh yeah,
basketball and hockey, and now we're sitting here in late spring, early summer, talking about hockey
in June and May, yeah,
and basketball. Yeah, so the cynic that I am, I just need to say that this stretching of the seasons is a lot to do with increased income.
Oh, revenue has a lot to do with it.
Oh yeah, it has everything to do.
If you ever talk, the discussions ever come up about shortening the season, the first thing they say is, what about the revenue losses, and what about TV revenue and arena revenue and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, a lot of it has to do with income. But on the flip side, I mean, it takes a toll on the athletes too. I mean, it's a long season. I mean, some of those hockey players that go to the finals, they'll play all the way into June, and they're starting again in October. So they only have 2.5 months off, and that's a grueling season. And I know a lot of people say, well, they make a lot of money to do it, but it still takes toll.
I think the culture, sports culture, is that these guys are expendable commodities. You get the most out of them, and then when they're worn out, you discard them.
I don't disagree. I think it's a chew them up and spit them out type of mentality, and you make all the money you can off them, and like you said, they're just, it's like a meat market, I think, when it comes down to it. I mean, it's just find the best players you can, get as much out of them as you can during their prime,
Yeah.
and then.
And I would caution any young man that gets drafted into pro sports that he or she finishes their education, always have a plan B.
Plan B is very important.
Yes.
Yeah. And you do see a lot of these pro athletes. Some of them do go back to school during the off season. I have seen here recently where there's a lot of players that do go back and they get their degree after they've started playing, and then some do it later on in life. Some do it and they didn't have a good plan, but then later on they went in and they got it once they were done playing. And
right, you can't divorce sports like any other aspect of modern life. You can't divorce it from morality issues. So you can't just compartmentalize it and just say, well, that's just sports. You can't write off anything like that.
It's all intertwined.
I can't. Anyway.
No, it's all intertwined, and it all has to come down to making decisions and doing the right thing, and I think it's important, and I think sometimes people view pro athletes and pro sports as being in a vacuum, where they're all subject to the same social issues that everyone else is subject to, and they have work environments that they have to work in, and they need to be treated correctly, and they need to treat correctly, and they don't operate in a vacuum. They're part of.
No, they don't, and some of the more combative aspects of sports appeals to the baser instincts in people. It's not, every culture had its blood sports, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
People love to see violence. Ask anybody who goes to demolition derby or sees wrecks on a car track or goes even if it's performance art, he goes to professional wrestling, or a hockey game. What's the old saying? A hockey game broke out in the middle of a fight. That's the particular reputation that hockey had pinned to it.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. Some of the sports here, they've toned down some respects, but then in other respects, some other sports have gotten a little bit more violent, so to speak. But all in all, I think that the entertainment value has been really good in both the NBA and the NHL, and I think it's been really well. And we'll look forward to the end of the playoffs here. And I think my prediction is I do think for the NHL, I think that the Golden Knights are going to win the Stanley Cup, and I think it's going to be the biggest story in NHL history.
Wait a minute, if I can find a quarter in my pocket, I'll bet you on that one.
It's funny you say that.
Is it legal now? Is it legal?
It's funny you say that because they were such a long shot to be in the NHL Finals and win the Stanley Cup. There are some people that placed bets on the Golden Knights at the beginning of the season when they were 400-1 odds.
Ooh,
so I've heard some people have bet $14 and they could win $40,000. So there are some bets out there. Las Vegas is not going to be
happy.
The books are not going to be happy. The sports books will not be happy if the Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup, and that could happen. And I'll be anxious to see what the fallout is.
I haven't seen any starving bookies.
No, they're pretty good. Yeah, I thought it would be a little bit fun maybe to talk a little bit about just some personal. People get to know us a little bit. Just some things where, hey, what are some of the things we like? And I thought, have you traveled a lot? Have you been
I know a lot about a lot of places, but it's all secondhand, reading and talking to people who've been there. I have not traveled a lot.
So do you have
maybe the eastern half of the United States.
Do you have a passion? Would you travel if you could?
Oh, on my bucket list.
So that's my question.
List of traveling, yeah.
I thought that it would be cool to share with the audience. What is on your bucket list in terms of travel? It's pretty modest. I would like to Italy, Florence, Rome, and Assisi. The Athens, the Holy Land, and the Greek islands. So you want to send?
My idea would be to get an extended cruise like a 60 days or 90 days and just do all of those things at a leisurely pace. Yeah.
And I call that part of the world the mothership.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
your descendants are from that area.
I'm half from that area. I'm Greek on my father's side and Polish on my mother's side.
So that's why I'm Italian. About 95% Italian. So I call that a region of the world the mothership. Because that's where
it really was. From. You know, the Romans called it the Mediterranean, which is Latin for the middle of the earth. That was the middle of the world for them, the known world, Mediterranean.
Oh,
yeah, that ocean, that pond there.
Me and the audience out here, we just learned something. Because I had no idea.
Do we have like a gong or a buzzer every time somebody gets an original thought?
I don't know what to say because I'm stumped. I didn't know that meant middle of the earth.
Yeah,
in Latin.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. See, and I thought that would be cool. I've done a little bit of traveling, so up to this point, not a lot. I've been to Europe. I've been to France and such, and that's where I got my passion for traveling. But on my bucket list, I want to go to the far South Pacific, into the places like New Zealand and Australia, but more specifically New Zealand. I was watching a TV show one time where I saw how serene and how beautiful it was and how calm it was, and it just attracted me.
It's a fantastic landscape. In fact, that's where a lot of the Lord of the Rings series
were I think Braveheart may have been filmed down there too.
Yeah.
And just a lush, tropical, and it just looked like a very calm pace of existence. And I just thought that would be kind of cool to go see. So on my bucket list, I would love to get down to that part of the world. And
down to the southern hemisphere.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it would be a good place to go, and I just thought...
Yeah, well, what I mentioned was my starting place. You know?
Oh, yeah.
What trouble with me is when I've had the time I didn't have... When I had the money, I didn't have the time, and when I had the time, I don't have the money. So.
Yeah, and that's usually how it works out. You kind of have to get all the stars in alignment and all that. But I think maybe as we move forward, I think it would be a good idea to maybe talk about some things that are on our bucket list, things to do. But I thought travel was a good place to start because it kind of gives a little insight as to...
You got to book you on as an executive chef on a top of the line cruise ship, and then you get to bring X number of people with you.
That would have been cool but the problem is the quarters are about as tight as our set here. So I'd be bumping into things left and right. And I don't know. I may only last about a week considering the quarters are so tight. But I thought that would be something where we could talk about just kind of a get to know kind of thing. And I thought it was kind of good to let them know kind of who we are as. What our ideas
We're
are.
Obviously such a fascinating people.
Oh,
I'm sure that there's millions of people just waiting and hanging on every word to know more about us.
I know, and I just wanted to be able to feed the masses with information about us because there are so many people out there.
We're just famous people in search of an audience. We're just
we're just waiting to hit it.
Potentially famous people.
We're waiting to go viral. You know, who would have thought that would have been an endearing term nowadays? Going viral way back in the day may have meant like we're gonna get sick or something. Now it's a good thing. So, but yeah, I mean, we there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and unfortunately we have some things going on in the world that aren't so fun and aren't really pleasant to talk about, but we have to hold our prayers and we have to pray for those people, and we have to pray for the people that are involved in these acts. And unfortunately we had another casualty shooting in Texas this week, and we try to keep our thoughts and prayers with the people affected by that, and unfortunately this is happening all too often, and we're hearing about it all too much. But we had a high school down in Texas that unfortunately was
Santa
Fe, Texas.
Yeah.
I think it's just a little outside of Houston.
Just a very short, just practically a suburb.
A former student went in and with a weapon and started shooting, and it was 10.
A shotgun and a revolver.
Yeah, and two very common weapons.
This was a troubled kid, and his father did not have the weapon secured. The father bears some responsibility.
Yeah, and so we lost 10 people, I think the count is right now, and one of them was a teacher's aide, and then there was some students involved, and obviously it's a situation where it asks a lot of questions come up for it, come to light, and one of them being is, what do we do about these things? Like, what is the solution to try to minimize this? Is it stricter laws? Is it better it probably has it's multifaceted.
It's a multi, and the people just want to focus on one thing. We could go the extreme route, which Israel does. In Israel, they have not had a classroom shooting in many years because every teacher is trained and carries every teacher in every classroom, and the schools are controlled access. Everything is, in other words, you make it as close and more difficult as possible for something like that to happen. Do we want to have our schools in that atmosphere? There are many say that we should.
I think I think somebody in government has proposed a similar type stance where they would allow teachers to carry firearms.
Yeah, it's not in Israel. It's not elective. You're going to teach. You need to be trained and have a firearm available. Mandatory draft in Israel. Everybody has to serve time and know how to handle a weapon. It's a society under siege, and that's their survival mode. Now, we're not quite at that point yet, but how much are we willing to surrender some of our freedom that we don't have our young people slaughtered like this?
And I know a lot of people, the first thing that comes to their mind is stricter laws are going to take away our freedoms. The stricter laws are going to not allow our rights that we are supposed to have as Americans. And to your point, there might have to be a little bit of sacrifice there in order to.
I mean, I believe in
help the common good.
I believe in the constitutional right to bear arms.
Mm-hmm.
I have my own firearms. I have a permit to carry. But I think there is such a thing as a common sense regulations and restrictions on, first of all, what kind of weapon is available to the public, and who can purchase a firearm to begin with. So to me, it seems like a no-brainer. A well-trained citizenry and well-armed citizenry, I'm paraphrasing the Constitution, being necessary for maintenance of the Republic. Well-trained, okay?
Yeah.
That means you don't stick a gun in any crazy's hand that comes along.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is being, like you said before, to your point, being responsible. And in this situation, there was somebody that, if you have that permit to carry, you have that permit to keep a firearm, you also have, with that comes the responsibility of making sure you know where that firearm is at all times, and making sure it's under your control even when it's not in your hands.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes that, and
I don't have a house with small children in it. Well, my firearms are well secured.
Yeah, and that's where you take that common sense approach, where it's something that you have to do, and it's something that with that permit comes responsibility. But I think also with these situations that have gone on here recently, I just think there's a lot of stuff in the media and out there where there's been a devaluation of life. Like, I think people are...
Now you're getting down to the core. These things are symptoms that we see. The abuse of women, essentially serial rape, with famous, powerful men. The way that children are treated and abused in many situations. Child pornography being the worst example of it. The whole devaluing of human life, and the whole almost looking at children as an inconvenience or something maybe we'll have. If we get everything else that we want, we might have a kid or two on the side for our amusement or something.
Yeah.
But so what's happened is we've devalued human life.
Yeah, and I think
these things are just a symptom of the ones that are the perpetrators of this have been themselves devalued. maybe their parents have. It's like a series.
It's usually a trickle-down effect.
Because nobody has a positive image of themselves and is able to relate to other people is going to go out and waste a whole classroom of children.
Yeah, and I think when it comes down to it, I think us as adults, we have to be kind of the leaders, and we have to be the people that are going to try to make these changes. And I just think that we have to take a stance where we may have to sacrifice a little bit of our freedoms and our rights in order to help with the common good. And at the same time, we got to teach. We have to make sure people understand and our children understand, and make sure that anyone that's close to us understands that it's a huge responsibility to have that Second Amendment. And with that Second Amendment comes us making sure they understand the seriousness of it.
So we already have a lot of restrictions on that we just take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm driving along and I see a light turning to red, and I'm in a big hurry. I don't care. I just go right through that intersection because I feel my right to get somewhere on time is more important than that silly old red light. We get all kinds of restrictions. I would be stupid to try and carry a firearm onto an airplane, you know, even though, you know, so obviously I would be in for deep trouble. We have all kinds of restrictions.
Yeah.
You know, that we can't do. I can't just, some guy ticks me off, I can't just, you know, go and break his nose, you know, just.
No, we all need restrictions. We all need rules. And I think, but what we all would agree is that right now a lot of people's hearts are aching for what's going on, and I think it's, I think we all, and I speak for you and the rest of us here, is we're all praying for those people,
of course,
praying for the victims, praying for their families, and praying for everybody involved, because it's very, very tough situation, and unfortunately it's happening all too often. But our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone out there, and
ditto.
We one other thing that we saw today. Have you heard a little bit about? I read in the news that there was this woman that claims that there's before we. And we play it, but we haven't gotten to that part of the technology yet. We're getting there. But it was a question of whether or not it's right to change a baby's diaper without asking their permission, or we should ask their permission before we do that. I think I'm paraphrasing it. I may have gotten a portion of it incorrect, but I don't think so. But have you heard this? Have you?
I've heard it, and it sounds so bizarre if this person was just. She couldn't have been serious. I mean,
oh, it looked pretty serious.
Are you sure she was? She's just trying to get attention and make it. You know, obviously she is, because it's
we're talking about
it's all around the place. But this is dumb. This is like I'll let this kid decide whether he really wants to go out and play in the middle of traffic or not. You know, who am I to tell him, restrict his urge to wander, you know, or and the same thing, you know, or you know, when it's time for his smallpox shots, you know, chicken pox shots or whatever, any kind of immunization, I'll wait until he's a little older and decide if he wants to do it.
I mean, I'm all for including your children in group decisions when it comes time to do that.
First of all, how does the baby respond if he's like 2 months old?
I think what she was saying was it just gets them in the habit of. I'm not sure a lot of those habits are forming yet. It just sounded pretty wild to me, and I've raised some children myself, my own children, and I don't remember asking them permission.
I think I've met some of this woman's kids in the supermarket, pulling stuff off the shelf and screaming,
well, not only that, but the ones
on the floor.
But the ones when you walk around, you smell them. Maybe they said no, don't change the diaper.
There
I mean,
you go.
They said no. You walk around like
I like it. I'm bonding with it.
I'm just living natural, you know. I mean,
I
don't know. I just thought it was kind of crazy.
It was crazy.
I didn't even think it was a real thing, but there's somebody out there. There's somebody talking about it. They have got it has some traction. So I mean, it's out there. People are talking about it.
Here we are now. One of my friends actually responded to this woman, contacted her, and said, "Do you think you should ask a baby's permission before you do an abortion on it?" Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, you're going to get the same response, which is nothing. So why not? I mean,
exactly.
So I mean, I thought it was just kind of weird, and I think there was probably some. Maybe she meant to have something come out a different way. I don't know, but I just thought it was kind of weird.
Maybe she just wanted attention.
Yeah, and I thought I would be amiss if I didn't include it in our first episode.
I would have really been PO'd if you hadn't brought it.
We'll skip that one. That one there's about the royal wedding, so we'll skip that one. I think there's been enough.
Definitely.
So tell us today. Why don't we reflect a little bit on what the gospel and what we talked about today?
Well, yeah,
in church.
for those of you who are into the calendar of the church, we're
pretty big day
celebrating the Feast of Pentecost. Yeah, Pentecost, the 50 days after Easter. It's a feast of the Jews, and it means 50 days after what? Passover, not after Easter, but after Passover. So we're celebrating this the end of this 50-day period of celebrating Easter. And
it's been 50 days since Easter already?
It's been 50 days.
I still have Easter candy in the closet.
I bet it's really good.
It's been 50 days. I have a half a bunny at home yet.
Seasoned candy. It's seasoned. You can sell it as a premium because it's been seasoned.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. All right, so we're 50 days after Easter.
Yeah, and the event the specific event that's commemorated in Christian circles is the descent of the Holy Spirit upon the early members of the church, and it's an event which was like the final impetus, the final kick out the door for the church.
So this was the final piece
right.
to say, hey, this all...
Right. Even though they had known Jesus for a number of years, even though Jesus had breathed the Holy Spirit on them in the upper room, even though he had said, go out and baptize all the world in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, go out to the nations before his ascension, they were still hesitant. And it's only until this experience of the Holy Spirit that you see a radical change in their attitude, their motivation, their energy level.
So this is when it happened.
This is the real final seal on the work that the church has to do. It's the final catalyst.
So this is what really
it pushes them out the door. They were getting pretty comfortable. I mean, look at some of them gone back to fishing, and Jesus has risen from the dead, and they're fishing because they don't really know what they're supposed to be doing. Now they have no excuse. They know exactly because they now have the voice of God speaking from within them. So
when they talked about it today, I kind of had the same kind of thoughts where it was just, this was it. This was what really made the light bulb go on for some people, and this was the like you said, the final push and the catalyst that sparked what would now become what we see today.
So, one of the effects of the Holy Spirit is brings a ability to see a larger pattern and picture and things. There's, whereas our human nature and also evil tends to divide and confuse things, it's the Holy Spirit that brings order into things.
And brings order to our set here, too.
It brings order, yeah.
Because this is a big mess here.
God breathes over the water, the Spirit breathes over the water, and from the chaos of unformed matter comes everything, even you and I. Yeah.
But since we are live, and I don't know if this part of the technology is working yet, but I'm looking at our executive producer. Do we have any questions? He's shaking his head no, in disbelief.
I think he's getting ready to deliver some bad technical news to us.
Yeah, he's probably going to come up to us and say, hey, we've been talking for 30 minutes and nobody's heard a thing.
I have a feeling we were brought here under a pretext.
Should I even do the closing, executive producer?
We were able here on the good faith, the belief that everything would be ready and functioning for us. I don't know.
They've been working at it. I mean, So just this is our pilot show. So this is the first show we did, but
a pilot of what? A pilot of what?
Well, pilot, not a pile of.
I'm sorry.
Oh man, put another quarter in here. We're going to get to go have like a 50-cent ice cream or something afterwards. But our show is going to be moving to a new channel. We are on the Laudare channel, but we're going to move a part of that channel is going to be Man vs. Cave, so we're going to get our channel. Yeah. So for all 7 people to watch, we're going to have our own channel. It's going to be awesome.
That's right. And Brad is busy having the soundtrack translated into Swahili, so we can really go into parts of Southern Africa with our stuff.
As long as we get the time zones right, we should be good. But if technology is working correctly, there should be something right underneath us with a description, but he's shaking his head no.
Oh.
On YouTube there is, on Facebook there is.
Okay, so people watch on Facebook, just ignore me.
You just have a drone fly through.
For people that are just watching my arms and hands move.
Tell them to go to YouTube and search Man vs. Cave.
I think you just told them.
No, because you're the one facing the microphone.
Okay, so from what I'm being told, if we go to YouTube, go to Man vs. Cave, is that right? Search for Man vs. Cave and click the bell. Subscribe.
And the bell.
And the bell, so you don't miss anything. That's what he told me. It says it right here, so you don't miss a thing.
So we're telling all you people out there to go to bell. Okay.
So, but you still stay on this channel because this channel's got a lot of great resources for Catholic reflections and for apologetics and such. So.
Yes. Even bad humor.
Even has some bad humor. But we do have a great production crew. I do have to say. This went off without a hitch.
Oh, it was. Yeah. I was so totally floored and impressed.
Yeah, I was blown away. I do have to be honest. But just remember, next time we'll have our own channel, Man vs. Cave. Subscribe, hit the bell, so you don't miss anything, and then check out our other channels. There's some other channels on the Laudare. There's a Brad Schepisi channel. It's got a great lithograph of the owner of that. I mean, it's a great picture.
Yeah.
The content is unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's great content. You wouldn't believe it until you see it. It's
That's
great.
Right.
We have a blog at laudare.org, and there's some links here. Oh, not on Facebook. There isn't. Only on YouTube.
Facebook people, cancel that.
So I mean, I think we did all right for our first show. It was good to be live, and I think
long live,
and to take
live well and prosper. That's it.
And to take a little bit from our other channels, our friend Be the Hammer. We're going to come up with our own thing, but for right now, I'm going to borrow his. Make sure you're Be the Hammer.
Yeah, hit number 20 right on the head. Is that it, boss?